Hey everybody, today we're going to try to get a video of my Ctenopoma Acutirostre feeding. I'm trying to reach over top of the camera here. Everybody comes up into this corner to feed, so I try to crumble up some krill off to the right and get everybody distracted so my Ctenopoma can come up here into the far left hand corner without getting barraged by all the rainbowfish. Believe it or not, as big and bulky as that Ctenopoma is, it's still really timid. It allows the rainbowfish to get in front of it and push it out of the way. I've even seen the rainbowfish take krill directly out of its mouth. If it doesn't get it fully in its mouth and some krill is sticking out, the rainbowfish will snatch it right out of its mouth. So I'm trying to throw some stuff a little more off to the right here, get them to come over into the light a little more. Yeah, it's a little more like it. He's an awesome fish. As much as I love my figure 8 puffer butterbean, who I'm also throwing some krill in his tank right now, I've got to say I think this Ctenopoma here is probably my favorite fish. It's one of my oldest fish. I've had it since way back. And he's got to be more than 5 by now. Just tons of personality. Not real flashy, doesn't have a whole lot of color. But tons of personality. And just an absolutely fascinating fish between the behavior and the interaction, the way it interacts with my catfish in this tank. And I'm really kind of actually surprised that we haven't seen the catfish come over. If I don't throw any algae wafers in, after a while the catfish comes over to get in on the krill action. Let me throw a little more in there. We'll see if we can get him to come up to the top again. So krill is a good food to put in this tank. Not really sure why, but the Ctenopoma is kind of down hiding in the center of the tank. I really need to get in this tank to do some more maintenance too. The algae's getting out of control. The water level's getting low enough that I can hear air bubbles getting sucked in through the surface skimmer, so that lets me know the water level's getting low. If you give me half a second, I'll pull the camera off the tripod and we'll have a closer look at everybody here. Hopefully I can get that off of there without banging it around too much. That gives you a little bit of a look at the size of the mouth on this fish. In the wild, these are piscivores. They eat other fish, and they also eat insects, and I would imagine they'd eat any little small wriggly thing that was on the surface of the water. And they're sort of geared towards looking up and striking from below. They're ambush predators. That's why you can see the way their mouth and eyes are sort of angled upwards like that. They're sort of geared towards drifting along, looking like a leaf, and striking from below. Now, these are not true leaf fish. True leaf fish look very different than this and are actually really boring. They look so much like leaves. In fact, if you've got them in a tank that's set up properly with the right habitat, they'll blend in so well you won't even notice they're in there until you've actually identified them. I've seen tanks with the true leaf fish in them where I've noticed one, and then a little while later I realize there's 2 more, and then I realize there's actually 7 of them in this tank, or whatever. You just don't see them. They look just like leaves. This one has a similar behavior, and it gets called a leaf fish, but that's just one of the common names. They're also called bush gouramis and leopard gouramis. They are anabantoids. They are related to gouramis. Anabantoid meaning that they are labyrinth fish, just like the Siamese fighting fish or the betta fish. They have the labyrinth organ, which is an organ that allows them to pump atmospheric air through it. It's sort of a series of canals, which is where it gets its name labyrinth. It's like a series of canals in their head, similar to what you might think of as our sinuses. And that allows the atmospheric oxygen to pass into their blood a little more freely, and it allows them to get oxygen when other fish can't. In very, very low oxygenated water, these fish can actually still gulp air, and that's why they sort of habitually do that, even if they're in a well-oxygenated tank. You'll often see gouramis going to the surface and gulping air. You'll often see ctenopomas like this going to the surface and gulping air. And that's just part of their natural behavior, because in the wild they live in very poor oxygenated waters. So that's where the labyrinth fish and all that comes from. So my catfish I was talking about, I'll show you real briefly right here, is my Synodontis eupterus. I'm not sure if it's pronounced eupterus or euterus. I've seen it pronounced both ways, or I've heard it pronounced both ways. There's a P in there, so I say eupterus, but it could very well be a silent P. As far as I'm concerned, don't put it in there if I'm not supposed to say it. So I call it a eupterus, but that is an African featherfin squeaker by its common name, if you buy it at the big chain pet store around here. And I bought that more or less at the same time as I bought my Ctenopoma here, who's coming back out into the light for us to see again. Just getting kind of tired of looking into the darkness there. That's another reason I need to get in here and do some work on this tank. I need to get in here and thin those plants out again and let a little more light into the tank. It almost looks like the light in the corner there has burned out, but I know it hasn't. I can see that it's lit. It's just so much vegetation in front of it, you can't even see it shining down into the tank anymore. So I'm going to get on with it. I don't know if I'm actually going to get to doing the maintenance on this tank this evening, but I do need to get around to feeding everybody else. And I was just going to point out how my two fish always interact, or usually interact. They swim around the tank together quite frequently. I call them my odd couple. They really don't seem like fish that you would see palling around together, and I use the term palling around loosely. But I often see them palling around. The catfish and the Ctenopoma there are often in close proximity. They sort of jostle and shove, almost like they're sort of friends, sort of playfully wrestling each other, playfully shoving each other around. It's strange behavior. I've been fascinated by it for years. I'm not one to put human behavior onto animals. I know they're obviously not in there playing or having fun together, but it is interesting watching them behave that way. So as I said, I need to get on with my evening, so I'm going to call that good there and say thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed, and don't forget, of course, this one here is my 125-gallon tank. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.